I've spent most of my life prioritizing others before myself. Whenever my friends needed help with something, I would put my own needs aside to make sure that I could help them. This often looked like giving my friends the space to rant even if I was exhausted, or placing myself in uncomfortable situations to gain the approval of others. My Asian upbringing has definitely contributed to who I am, as I grew up with the expectation placed onto me of having to serve others first. However, within Asian culture, I believe there is one caveat to this claim: love. Students, when was the last time you told your family members or friends, "I love you"? And to all the parents and guardians in this audience, when was the last time you said, "I love you"? I don't ask this question because I believe we are selfish, but because the reason why I believe we don't say "I love you" to others enough is because we don't love ourselves. Not just within Asian culture, but within our society itself, we are told to place others before ourselves. But no one talks about the power of loving yourself first before you can truly help others. Self-love is defined as a state of appreciation for oneself that grows from actions that support one's physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. Self-love grows based on the actions we make for ourselves, teaches us how to accept our strengths and weaknesses, establish our core values, and live a fulfilling life. I'd like you all to take a minute to reflect on your own lives and ask yourselves, do you love yourself? To those of you who don't, I'd like you all to have some compassion towards yourselves and pay close attention to what I'm about to say next. In our day and age where social media is so prevalent in our lives, I understand how easy it can be to compare yourself to others. From seeing other successes to photoshopped images depicting unrealistic body standards, I know how difficult it is to be confident in who you are and truly love yourself. But as challenging as it may be, I want you all to begin taking the leap today to actively seek your own self-love journey, because you all deserve to be happy with who you are and enjoy the life you are creating for yourself. Many of our speakers tonight have spoken about planting seeds, but now I'm about to show you all how you can grow these seeds with these 3 steps: being mindful, setting boundaries, and most importantly, forgiving yourself. I define being mindful as being able to understand and validate your own feelings, which is something I used to struggle with. Whenever I was upset, I'd shut people out, give them the silent treatment, and then once I had gotten over the issue, I pretended as if nothing had ever happened. I didn't realize how harmful this was in my relationships until I was pushing away the people that cared most about me. I realized that I was avoiding these negative emotions for the longest time because I didn't want to deal with the pain and hurt that came with learning and growing. What I do now to validate my own emotions is journal. Whenever I'm sad or upset or angry, or I don't even know what I'm feeling, I ask myself, what took place? Were there any instances in the past that may have triggered this response from me? And what can I do to support myself better in the future? I believe another important component of being mindful is being able to understand your own intuition. Something I used to struggle with was acceptance. I thought that dimming my own light and personality for the sake of fitting in would give me the love and validation that I thought I needed from other people. But because of this, I stayed in friendships with people that didn't really support me and with people that didn't know how to communicate well. And in the end, I felt more lonely because I was surrounded by people who didn't truly care about me. Being mindful is so important because it's taught me how to discover my own self-worth and understand what my own needs are. I understand now that if I'm ever tired, I will give myself the break, even if there's a voice in the back of my head saying that I don't deserve it. And I understand now that if I ever feel like a friend no longer has my best interests at heart, I move on. I urge you all to begin listening to your own feelings so that you can build a stronger relationship with yourself and build self-trust. Moving on to step 2, set boundaries. Boundaries are limits that you create with yourself or with others to let yourself know what your own capabilities are within that relationship. Setting a boundary could look like letting a friend know that you don't have time to hang out with them this week, or setting a boundary with yourself to start eating and start prioritizing eating and sleeping more often. I personally still struggle with setting boundaries because I'm an overthinker. I jump to conclusions and I assume that the people in my own life will stop caring about me if I ever say no to them or set a boundary. Even as a woman, I'm expected by society to constantly be nurturing other people, in addition to taking care of myself and always looking like I'm okay. But I'm here to remind you all that you live your life for yourself. If you are constantly giving your energy to other people and constantly giving, you will never know when to stop. and your own feelings matter, and you are allowed to take up space in our world. If you are someone who is currently struggling with setting boundaries, I recommend sitting down with yourself and writing down what you believe your own boundaries are. Take the time to constantly reaffirm yourself that your feelings matter and you are human, you are allowed to take space in our world. And eventually, once you gain the confidence to say them, talk to a friend or family member and let them know what your own boundaries are. Last but not least, forgive yourself. I'm someone who sets a lot of goals for myself, and sometimes when I don't achieve these goals, I feel like I'm not enough. I realized that I have this innate desire to constantly be the best that I can be, or to be number one, because I've realized that my parents have done so much for me, and in a way, I can never repay them. And when I don't achieve these goals for myself, I feel like I'm not enough. But I'm here to remind you again that you live your life for yourself. And even then, these mistakes that you think of as failures aren't failures, and instead, look at them as learning lessons that teach you more about yourself and how you can grow to love yourself. I've spoken a lot about self-love and how it's beneficial in your own relationships and helping others, but I'd like to remind you all that self-love is for you. I want you all to begin your own self-love journey because I want you all to achieve that inner peace that I feel every day. I want you all to be able to say and talk about who you are, know your own strengths, and be able to enjoy the life that you are making for yourself, and make decisions every day knowing that they're for you. I've spoken a lot about journaling, and I'd like to show you all something. Like I've said before, I journal every time I want to validate my own feelings. But I also wanted to write a love letter and show you all what I would say to myself if I was ever struggling. I would say to myself, "Dear Cindy, you are entering a transitional phase in your life right now, and with that, sometimes loss is given. Loss takes place to test you and help you grow to your highest potential. And it's hard, because you're unlearning the habits you were used to and letting go of bad relationships. But I'm here to remind you of how proud I am. Hang in there." Like I've said before, I want you all to reach a place in your own life where you know who you are, and you'd be able to say these things to yourself and be your number one supporter. So what would you write? Ultimately, I hope you all begin seeking your own self-love journey today. Remember that while self-love is something that you need to achieve on your own, sometimes self-love means being able to reach out and ask for help, even if it's hard. The Orange County Asian and Pacific Islander Community Alliance is a local nonprofit that provides free short-term counseling to anyone who seeks it, even if you are outside the Asian and Pacific Islander community. And there are also hotlines available online if you ever need emergency help. Like I've said before, the constant prevalence of social media in our lives constantly highlights other people's successes and highs in their life. But I'd like to remind you all that sometimes, even if that makes us feel like we aren't enough, I'm here to remind you all that you are. Everyone has their own story that we may not necessarily know, and we all have our own set of strengths, and we all go through life at our own pace. And in other words, find your own bloom. Thank you.